the disruption of comfort. How often we cling to the familiar, to the safe and predictable, as though it were a fortress against life's uncertainties. But life, if it is anything at all, is not static. It is a constant unfolding, a ceaseless dance of creation and destruction, ebbing and flowing, rising and falling. And when it seems that the ground beneath your feet is shifting, when your carefully constructed plans are crumbling, it may be that something far greater is at work. You see, comfort is a curious thing. It lulls us into believing we are secure, but often it is the very thing that keeps us stagnant. When you are too comfortable, you stop growing. You settle into routines, habits, and patterns that may feel safe, but do not challenge you, do not stretch you, do not compel you to evolve. And so, life, or what some might call God, steps in to disrupt that comfort. And it steps into the time of life where you were born to do something, not as an act of cruelty, but as an act of profound love. Imagine for a moment a seed buried in the earth. It is comfortable in the soil, cradled in darkness, shielded from the elements. But the seed's purpose is not to remain in that state. Its purpose is to grow, to break open, to push through the dirt and reach for the light. That process is not gentle. The shell of the seed must crack. The soil must be disturbed. And so it is with us. When life feels chaotic, when relationships strain, when jobs are lost, when plans unravel, it is tempting to resist, to cling tightly to what was, to curse the heavens for the apparent injustice of it all. But what if these disruptions are not obstacles, but invitations? What if they are signs that you are being prepared for something greater, something you cannot yet see? The trouble, of course, is that we are often blind to the greater purpose behind the discomfort. We see only the immediate pain, the inconvenience, the loss. But what we fail to realize is that the discomfort is the point. It is the catalyst for change, the spark that ignites transformation. Think about it. When has true growth ever come from a place of ease? But here's the paradox. The more we resist this disruption, the harder it feels. Resistance is what turns discomfort into suffering. It's like trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. The tide will come, whether you like it or not. The question is not whether you will face disruption, but how you will respond to it. If you can let go, if you can release your grip on the illusion of control and surrender to the flow of life, something remarkable happens. The very chaos you feared becomes a source of clarity. The discomfort becomes a teacher, and what you thought was falling apart was, in fact, falling in. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is easy. It is one thing to talk about surrender, and quite another to practice it when the rug is being pulled out from under you. But consider this. Every time you have faced disruption in the past, you have come out the other side, perhaps not unscathed, but wiser, stronger, more resilient. And isn't it interesting how, in hindsight, those moments of upheaval often reveal themselves as turning points, precisely what needed to happen to bring you to where you are now? So, when you find yourself in the midst of disruption, pause. Breathe. Resist the urge to fight or flee. Instead, ask yourself, what is this moment teaching me? What is being stripped away that no longer serves me? What might be waiting on the other side of this discomfort? Because here's the truth. Life is always moving you forward, even when it feels like you're standing still, or worse, being dragged backward. The disruption is not a punishment. It is a calling to step into a fuller version of yourself, to embrace the unknown, to trust that the seed of who you are is being nurtured in ways you cannot yet comprehend. And so, if you feel that your comfort is being disrupted, take heart. You are not being forsaken, you are being transformed. And transformation, though rarely comfortable, is the gateway to your breakthrough. The ground beneath your feet is not vanishing. It is shifting to make space for the life you are destined to create. It's an odd thing, isn't it? That silence, that deafening stillness when you so desperately wish to hear something, anything. There are times when you reach out, searching for guidance, yearning for answers, and yet nothing. No voice, no sign, no reassuring whisper from the universe to let you know you're on the right path. It feels as though you've been abandoned, left to wander in the wilderness of your own uncertainty. But what if that silence isn't abandonment? What if it's not neglect, but rather an invitation? You see, we tend to think of silence as emptiness, as absence. But silence, like a blank canvas, is full of potential. It's not that nothing is happening, it's that we're being asked to listen more deeply. It's as though life, or what some might call God, is stepping back to allow us space. Space to reflect, to question, to uncover something within ourselves that we might otherwise overlook. Now, this can feel deeply uncomfortable. We are creatures who crave connection, affirmation, a sense of certainty. When we don't hear that comforting voice, when the answers don't come as quickly as we'd like, we start to panic. Why is God silent, we ask? Why aren't my prayers being answered? What am I doing wrong? But consider this. Perhaps the silence isn't a punishment or a test of your worth. Perhaps it's a sign that you are being called to grow. Imagine for a moment that you are a child learning to ride a bicycle. At first, someone is always there, holding the back of the seat, steadying you, guiding you. But there comes a moment when they have to let go. And in that moment, you feel it, the sudden absence of their hand, the rush of uncertainty, the realization that you are on your own. It's terrifying, yes, but it's also necessary. Because only by letting go can they teach you to trust yourself. Only by letting go can you learn to ride. And so it is with silence. When you feel as though the hand that steadied you has been taken away, it is not because you are being abandoned. It is because you are being trusted. Trusted to take the next step, to navigate the unknown, to discover the strength and wisdom that already exist within you. Silence has a way of revealing things we would otherwise ignore. When the noise of the world quiets, when the usual answers and reassurances are no longer there, we are forced to turn inward. And what do we find there? At first, perhaps, we find fear, doubt, the nagging sense that we might not be enough. But if we stay with it, if we sit in that silence long enough, we begin to hear the voice beneath the silence. The still, small voice that has been there all along, patiently waiting for us to listen. This voice does not shout or demand, it whispers. It speaks in the language of intuition, of knowing without words. It reminds us that we are connected to something vast, something infinite, something that cannot be contained in the noise and chatter of daily life. And yet we resist this silence. We fill it with distractions, with endless activity, because we are afraid of what we might find if we sit still long enough to truly listen. But the truth is, there is nothing to fear. Silence is not a void, it is a mirror. It reflects back to us the truth of who we are, the lessons we need to learn, the paths we are being called to walk. When the silence comes, instead of running from it, lean into it. Treat it not as an absence, but as an offering. Ask yourself, what is this silence trying to show me? What truths have I been avoiding? What strength is waiting to be discovered within me? You may find that the answers you seek were never outside of you to begin with. They were not waiting to be delivered by some distant voice in the sky. They were already planted within you, like seeds, waiting for the right moment to bloom. And perhaps the silence, the unsettling stillness you feared, was simply the sunlight and soil they needed to grow. So, the next time you feel as though the heavens have gone silent, remember, silence is not absence. It is presence in its most profound form. It is the space where transformation begins, where we stop looking outward and start looking inward. And when you come out on the other side of that silence, you may find that you have not only the answers you were searching for, but also a deeper understanding of yourself. You may find that you no longer need to be carried because you have learned to walk. And more than that, you have learned to trust the path beneath your feet, even when you cannot see where it leads. Silence is not the end of the conversation. It is the beginning of a deeper one. Life, as you've likely noticed, is not one long, smooth ride. It has a curious way of throwing challenges at us, often at the very moment we think we've got things figured out. These challenges, those unexpected hurdles, those moments of resistance, can feel like cruel jokes, as if the universe has conspired to make things just a little bit harder for you. But perhaps there's something deeper at play. Perhaps these obstacles are not punishments but invitations, not barriers to stop you, but tools to shape you. You see, life isn't interested in leaving you as you are. It's in the business of growth, evolution, expansion. And growth, by its very nature, requires resistance. Think of the way a muscle is strengthened. It doesn't grow when it's at rest. It grows when it is pushed, stretched, and challenged. The tension it encounters isn't there to harm it. It's there to transform it. And so it is with you. Challenges, while uncomfortable, serve a purpose. They act as mirrors, reflecting back to you the places within yourself that are in need of attention. They reveal your limitations, not to shame you, but to show you where you are ready to grow. Perhaps you've noticed this in your own life. The moments that stretched you the most, the ones that seemed impossibly difficult at the time, often become the very moments you look back on as turning points. They are the fire through which you are tempered, the resistance that gives you strength. But here's the paradox. We often misinterpret these challenges. When they appear, we think, why is this happening to me? We see them as interruptions, as obstacles blocking our path. What we fail to realize is that they are the path. The challenge is not separate from your journey. It is the very thing that propels you forward. Imagine a caterpillar spinning its cocoon. Inside, it doesn't simply rest and wait to emerge as a butterfly. It undergoes a process of complete transformation, dissolving into something unrecognizable before becoming what it was always meant to be. And when it's time to emerge, the struggle to break free from the cocoon is not incidental. It's essential. Without that resistance, the butterfly's wings would never be strong enough to fly. The struggle is the preparation. The challenge is what enables the breakthrough. In the same way, the challenges you face are not arbitrary. They are designed to prepare you for what's ahead. They strengthen your character, sharpen your focus, and teach you resilience. But more than that, they invite you to let go of the parts of yourself that can no longer serve you. Often, what we interpret as suffering is simply the shedding of old skin, the breaking apart of what is no longer aligned with who we are becoming. And yet, when we encounter these challenges, we resist them, we fight against them, hoping to maintain our comfort, our sense of control. But resistance only amplifies the struggle. It's like swimming upstream against a powerful current. You expend all your energy trying to fight the flow, but you never make any progress. What if, instead, you allowed the current to carry you? What if you trusted that it knows where it's taking you, even if you cannot yet see the destination? There's something deeply liberating in this trust. When you stop resisting the challenges and start embracing them, they begin to lose their power to overwhelm you. They become less like enemies and more like teachers. And every challenge, no matter how painful, carries within it a gift, a lesson, a truth, a piece of the puzzle that is your becoming. Of course, this doesn't mean the process will be easy. Growth is rarely comfortable. There will be moments when you feel stretched beyond your limits, moments when you want to give up. But remember this, every time you are tested, you are being prepared. Every challenge you face is refining you, shaping you into the person you are meant to be. And when you look back, you'll see it. You'll see how every setback was setting you up, how every trial was a thread in the larger tapestry of your life. You'll see how the resistance wasn't there to stop you, it was there to strengthen you. What felt like a storm was clearing the way for the light. So the next time you face a challenge, pause. Take a moment to breathe, to reflect, and instead of asking, why is this happening to me, ask, what is this teaching me? How is this shaping me for what's ahead? Because the truth is, the challenges are not in the way, they are the way. And when you emerge on the other side, when you feel the weight of those struggles lift, you'll realize that the wings you needed to fly were being formed all along. Challenges are not here to break you. They are. There comes a time when the people and relationships you've held dear begin to shift. Perhaps they seem to pull away, or maybe you find yourself feeling out of sync with them. It's disorienting, isn't it? To watch familiar connections fray or fade, to feel as though the very bonds that once grounded you are loosening. It's natural to wonder what went wrong, to feel hurt, confused, or even abandoned. But what if, rather than being a loss, this shift is a sign? What if the separation isn't happening to you, but for you? Life, after all, is a constant process of change. Nothing remains fixed, no matter how tightly we try to hold on. Relationships are no exception. They evolve just as we do. And when we are on the cusp of something new, when we are being prepared for a breakthrough, it's not uncommon for the dynamics around us to shift. Not because we've failed or done something wrong, but because growth often requires us to move into spaces where not everyone can follow. Think about the seasons of your life. There are times when certain people feel like home, when they reflect who you are and where you're headed. But as you grow, as you step into new aspects of yourself, you may find that some relationships no longer align with who you're becoming. It's not that those connections were wrong or bad, they were simply right for a particular moment. And this is not an easy process. Letting go rarely is. We are wired to seek stability, to cling to what feels familiar, even when it no longer fits. And when people drift away, it's tempting to chase after them, to try to repair or preserve what was. But what if, instead of resisting, you allowed the shift to unfold? What if you trusted that the people who are meant to walk with you will stay, and those... It's important to remember that separation is not necessarily rejection. Often, it's simply a redirection. When relationships change or dissolve, it can be a sign that you're being guided toward connections that resonate more deeply with your evolving self. And while this process may feel lonely at times, it's also an invitation to deepen your relationship with yourself. When you're no longer distracted by trying to hold on to what's slipping away, you have the opportunity to turn inward, to ask yourself, who am I becoming? What values, dreams, and truths are emerging within me? This inward journey can be uncomfortable, especially if you've spent much of your life defining yourself through others. But it is you begin to realize that your worth is not tied to who stays or goes, that your value is not diminished by the shifting tides of relationships. And as you come to understand this, you start to attract people who align with your growth, who support and inspire you in ways you never imagined. It's a curious thing, isn't it, how life rearranges the puzzle pieces of our connections. At first it feels like chaos, a scattering of what was. But over time, a new picture begins to emerge, one that reflects not who you were, but who you are becoming. This doesn't mean there won't be grief. It's natural to mourn the relationships that no longer fit, to feel the ache of what once was. But even in that grief, there's a kind of beauty, because it reminds you of the love, the lessons, the moments of connection that were shared. Those relationships, however brief or long learning, were part of your journey. They helped shape you, prepare you, and bring you to this very moment. So, when you notice relationships shifting, don't rush to fix them. Don't hold on so tightly that you miss what's unfolding. Instead, take a step back. Breathe. Trust that life is not subtracting but refining. And know that every person who crosses your path, whether they stay for a season or a lifetime, has... Ultimately, this process of separation is not about loss. It's about alignment. It's about making space for the relationships and connections that will support you in the next chapter of your life. And as painful as it might feel in the moment, it is also a profound act of love. Love for yourself, love for the journey, and love for the infinite possibilities that lie ahead. As you step forward, trust that the people who are meant to be in your life will find you. And trust, too, that the space left by those who have gone is not emptiness, it is possibility. It is the fertile ground where new connections will grow, where you will meet those who will walk beside you in this next season of becoming. Life is always moving us toward what we need, even when it feels like it's taking things away. So embrace the shifts, the separations, the realignments. They are not endings. They are beginnings in disguise. There's a peculiar moment in every journey when things start to feel unsettled. A restlessness creeps in, a strange tension that seems to hum beneath the surface of your life. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you sense it, the shifting of energy, the subtle rearranging of the pieces. It's as though the universe has reached into the order of your world and begun to stir the pot. Plans unravel. Paths that once seemed clear suddenly blur. Even your own sense of direction feels uncertain. It's disorienting, even maddening, because we crave stability. We want to know what's next, to feel as though the ground beneath us is solid. But what if the unsettling is the signal? What if this disruption, this chaos, is not random but intentional? A sign that something profound is about to emerge. Disruption by its very nature is uncomfortable. It tears at the fabric of what we've built, forcing us to confront the places in our lives where we've grown too comfortable, too complacent. We tend to resist it, to label it as something negative, as though the very act of shaking up the status quo is a threat to our well-being. But disruption is not the enemy. It's a messenger, a catalyst for transformation. Think of a snow globe. Its beauty lies in the flurry of movement, in the chaos that unfolds when it's shaken. Without the shaking, the magic remains hidden, settled into the bottom, unseen. And so it is with us. The shaking, though uncomfortable, stirs up the magic that has been lying dormant within us. But of course, when you're in the midst of it, when your plans fall apart, when relationships shift, when everything you thought was certain suddenly feels up in the air, it's hard to see it that way. It feels as though the universe is conspiring against you, throwing obstacle after obstacle in your path. And yet, if you pause, if you step back for just a moment, you might begin to see that the disruption isn't there to punish you. It's there to prepare you, to break apart the old so that the new can take root. Consider a field that has lain fallow for years, its soil hardened and overrun with weeds. Before it can be planted with something new, it must be tilled, turned over, broken open. It's a violent process, in a way, the breaking of the ground, but it is necessary. Without it, the seeds cannot grow. And in the same way, the disruptions in your life are tilling the soil of your soul, breaking open the hardened places, making room for something new to grow. Now, this is not to say that every disruption is easy to endure. Often it feels like chaos without meaning, as though the foundation you've built is crumbling for no reason at all. But trust that there is a reason, even if it's not immediately clear. Trust that the things falling away are creating space for something greater. We are so quick to cling to what we know, to hold on to the familiar, even when it no longer serves us. But life, in its infinite wisdom, knows when it's time to let go. And sometimes it takes disruption to pry our fingers loose. Think about those moments in your life when everything seemed to fall apart. At the time, they felt like endings, but looking back, you might see that they were also beginnings. The job you lost that led you to a career you never imagined, the relationship that ended, opening the door to a deeper connection with yourself or someone new. The plans that failed, only to redirect you to a path that was truer to your soul. Disruption is rarely comfortable, but it is often the birthplace of transformation. So, what do you do when life disrupts your plans? When the path ahead seems to crumble beneath your feet? You surrender, not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of letting go. Let go of the need to control, to force things to stay the same. Trust that the shaking is clearing away what no longer serves you, that the chaos is creating space for clarity. And remember that this process, though messy, is not random. It is purposeful. It is preparing you for the breakthrough that is just on the horizon. It's in these moments of disruption that we are asked to trust most deeply, to trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense, to trust ourselves, even when we feel unsure, to trust that the universe is not breaking us, but shaping us. And when you lean into that trust, something remarkable happens. The very chaos that once felt overwhelming begins to make sense. The disruption is not the end of your story. It's the stirring of the waters, the shaking of the snow globe, the tilling of the soil. It's the universe's way of saying, something new is coming. Get ready. So, embrace the disruption, even as it unsettles you. Trust the shaking, even when it feels like too much. And know this, the breakthrough you've been waiting for is on the other side. All you have to do is keep going. We've all been there. Those moments when you feel as though you're on the edge of something great, and yet somehow everything feels like it's slipping through your fingers. You've worked, you've waited, you've done everything that was asked of you, and now it feels as though the very thing you've been striving for is just out of reach. It's like standing at the door of a room you've always wanted to enter, only to have it remain locked, no matter how hard you try to turn the handle. Let's see, the third approach is what we call the window you meet. The frustration, the confusion, the doubt, it all comes rushing in. But here's a thought. What if in those moments when the door won't open, when the breakthrough still seems far away, you are actually closer than you think? We are so conditioned to view progress as something linear. We imagine that once we've done the work, once we've put in the time and effort, the door should open, the breakthrough should come. But the truth is, the universe doesn't always work on our timeline. It doesn't operate according to the rules we've set out. There are moments when it feels like you're right at the brink, when this feeling of being so close but not quite there can be maddening, can make you question everything you've been doing. But it's also in these moments when you feel at your lowest, when everything seems to be crumbling around you, that the most profound shifts often take place. Think of the process of a seed growing into a tree. For months it is buried beneath the soil, unseen, its progress invisible. But beneath the surface, deep within the earth, something is happening. The roots are taking hold, the foundation is being established, and the seed is quietly preparing to break through the surface. You can't see it, you can't measure it, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. In fact, the growth that's taking place beneath the soil is essential for what's about to come above the surface. And so it is with you. When it feels like you are stuck, when you feel as though your breakthrough is slipping further away, it's important to remember that the work, the growth, the preparation is still happening. It's simply happening beneath the surface. The universe is never idle. It is always at work in the background, setting things into motion, aligning pieces that you cannot yet see. The fact that you feel so close is in itself a sign that you are exactly where you need to be. But here's where the challenge lies. In those moments of frustration, when the breakthrough feels out of reach, we are often tempted to give up, to believe that maybe, just maybe, we've been going in the wrong direction, that this whole journey was a waste of time. We second-guess ourselves, doubt our efforts, and question whether it's all worth it. And this is exactly where we are tested. This is the moment where the breakthrough is either solidified or sabotaged, not by the universe, but by our own beliefs. When you feel like you're standing on the edge of something incredible, but it just won't manifest, remember that this is the test. The question is not, have you done enough, but do you trust that everything you've done, everything you've worked for, is leading you to the right place, even if you can't see it right now? Trust, my friends, is the key. Trust that what's unfolding is bigger than your immediate circumstances. Trust that you are exactly where you need to be, even if it doesn't look the way you expected. This trust, however, is not a passive waiting. It's not about sitting back and hoping for the best. Trust is an active state of being. It's about continuing to move forward even when you can't see the next step. It's about taking action, not because you have the whole picture, but because you believe that each step, no matter how small, is contributing to the whole. It's about surrendering the need for control, letting go of the illusion that you can dictate exactly how things should unfold. The beauty of life is that it is constantly surprising us. Just when we think we've figured it out, when we think we know what's next, it presents us with something new, something unexpected. And often that unexpected thing is the breakthrough we've been waiting for. It's just that we couldn't see it coming because we were too focused on the door that refused to open, the plan that seemed to fail. So what do you do when you feel so close to a breakthrough, yet it remains elusive? You keep going. You keep showing up, keep doing the work, and keep trusting that what's meant for you will come in its own time. The door will open when it's meant to. You can't force it, you can't rush it. You can only continue your path, confident that everything you've done so far is preparing you for what's ahead. When you feel like you're on the edge of your breakthrough, remember, that very feeling of almost there is the universe whispering, you're on the right track. Don't give up now. Trust that your time is coming. The door will open when it's meant to, and when it does, you'll step through with the knowledge that every moment of waiting, every moment of doubt, was part of the process that led you to where you are meant to be. Keep moving forward and trust the unfolding. Your breakthrough is closer than you think.